So I had this patient, right? We're going to slow things down for this one because it's a lot. I had this patient, right, and he had a flat foot arc like that. When that arc should have actually been like that, the arc should have been an arch, but it wasn't that. It was pretty flat. I got to say something about the foot first, though. You know, the thing is, people kind of love to blame the foot. People love to say the foot's the problem. But, oftentimes the foot is not the problem. The foot is incredibly strong. On any individual joint, you can basically suspend the entire body's weight of the foot, no matter where it is. So the foot really can't just fall out of place easily. And though if it does, it could collapse the entire system. It could cause problems way higher up the chain, and it certainly does when it does. But the fact is, it is so strong that it's very unlikely that it just falls out of place. More than likely, what happens is that it is pushed out of place. It is forced out of place. And so we have to give some foot credit. We have to give credit to that foot, and we have to make a little more sense. So in this example, we're going to be doing top-down stuff, what people honestly don't do a lot of the time when it comes to the foot problem. We're going to go from the top down and show how it's a plausible thing that, in fact, the foot problem, what we see in the foot, is actually coming from somewhere higher up. And this doesn't mean this is absolutely true, because it does go the other way, but the reality is oftentimes it's mutually growing problems. It's not just one location, it's multiple locations going in and out of place together. They get better together and they get worse together, and that's the reality of the situation. And so we're going to show how those mutually interrelated things can create each other by doing the opposite of what a lot of people do. In any case, let's make some sense out of this. With this patient I had, there was a flexed lumbar spine, like so. Now really, it's more of a flat lumbar spine, but let's just exaggerate, let's flex it. It was like it was being pushed back this way. And most of that curvature was actually at about 3, 4, 5, so it was a bit more like that. It was like a harsh flexion curve followed by an extension curve quickly, and then another big flexion curve here pushing back that way. And now right away you got to know that's bad, because it's not a smooth transition, and when things don't smoothly transition, when they don't curve smoothly in the body, that's bad. We're going to come back to that. We also had, in addition to this flexed lumbar spine, we had a posteriorly rotated pelvis, so it was coming back like that. There's that acetabulum. So it was coming back like that, going along with that flexed pelvis. That's how it happened to be in this case. What that does to the upper body is forces it to move forward as a whole, so it tends to drive it that way. And as the head comes forward, the center of gravity comes forward. In fact, this has to happen, otherwise you'd be looking at the ground all the time. The neck ends up in a big extension to compensate for this harsh flexion curve here. It's a necessity. Again, you don't want to look at the ground all the time, even though the feet are very interesting. That's why we're doing this. Anyways, with that posterior pelvis, it changes the angulation of pressure on the hip. Normally, the acetabulum has a nice lip. It has a supraacetabular groove that would be, if we're looking at the femur again, it would be right around here, and it reinforces it. It actually prevents that femur from going straight up. It's a reinforcement against the pressure and weight of the body pushing down and the floor coming back at you when you step or land. However, when we've tilted the pelvis backwards, posterior rotation, it tends to put a different angle of pressure. It tends to go down that way. So it rotates back and it tends to push down that way. This, and with the gluteus medius and minimus muscles pulling at a different angle, tends to want to rotate that hip externally. So we get an external rotation going on here. We can do better than that. There we go. External rotation going on here. Now this is actually the whole leg. We say hip, we say femur, but it's really the whole leg. So it goes down all the way to the tibia, through the knee joint as well. And now, once this starts changing, so again, gluteus medius minimus, angle of push, angle of forces being pushed on that pelvis, external rotation, we tend to get, or we have, we can say, a collapse of both the knee and the ankle. Now, there's a few reasons for this. It could have gone totally the other way. It could have gone this way. It could have gone bow-legged, cowboy style for you. But what it went to was what we call a Genuvalgus strain and a talipes valgus. We'll get to both those in a second. Now, this is likely because the patient did not want to walk with the feet way farther apart. They didn't want to be doing this. So they brought the leg in, and as you bring the leg in to where the foot is in essentially the proper place, essentially right there where it's supposed to be. Nothing wrong with that because they wanted to appear normal, but you're compensating for something. When you compensate for something and really try hard to appear normal, sometimes you do things weirder than you would expect, or different things weirder. So they fired their adductors to keep it in line. They're trying to bolt this way. There's, oops, wrong color. There we go. Adductor magnus, brevis, longus, all those guys. Anyways, they're all there. And so when you fire that adductor, let me get rid of some of that adductor there. When you fire that adductor, tends to draw the leg in. No, we're going to keep that apparently. Anyways, it tends to draw that leg in. It tends to draw the knee in at a funny angle. And so this gives us that angle that is not good, this angle right here, that we call a genuvalgus. And now remember, again, that we've got this heavy weight of the body coming down. We've got this heavy weight right here of the upper body, everything above it pressing down. And when you start to press down in this same way as a center of gravity, it shifts where the gravity line is. It shifts where the pressure is off the midline, even of the leg, where it should be here. It starts to go this way to match that forward pressure and to match the collapse of the knee. And that follows down into the ankle, and we get what we call a lateral external rotation of that foot, or a talipes valgus. I like to remember the L in valgus means lateral, and that's where the distal part of the joint is. That's a free tip, no extra charge for that. Anyways, when that starts to happen, the pressure angle on the foot, so the pressure being exerted now on the foot, is not so much on the heel. And the heel is a better place to put weight. For the most part, the heel is a better place. Now we want to put a little bit of weight, of course, on the toes and on the ball of the foot too. That's important. We should definitely strive to do that. But when we put it on the middle, we shift it instead from here, and we shift it more here, where that center of gravity is pushing. It's pushing on the high part of the arch. It's not pushing on the two supports where it should be there and there. That would be great. It's actually not pushing there. It's pushing on this center point, a movable, flexible point. So again, there's a calcaneus, there's a heel, there's a ball of the foot. We definitely want more here on the calcaneus. We definitely do not want nearly as much here. But if we stick that force, that descending force of weight, now on to the arch, right in that arch, the arch that used to be like this, that probably started when we were born, that looked beautiful and perfect and all that stuff, and it looked really, really nice. Now as we put that weight onto it, that aberrant weight, that weight in the middle of the arch is being pressed down. It's being physically loaded by the entire body weight above it. And this is not necessarily a problem in the short term. This is something that the body can withstand probably for quite a while. But give it a few months, give it a few weeks, I don't know, give it a few years, a few decades. How much longer do you think that arch can take that kind of pressure and withstand? How much longer do you think it could take it before it ends up deforming to that shape, as all bones and soft tissues do? They take on the shape of which they are pressured because of the way they are used, because of the way the weight is borne on the joint. All things will deform to weight. They're made to do that. Bone, ligament, muscle, tendon, fascia in general. They all do that. So the reason we made this example is not to prove one way, because bottom up, top down, all directions, all combinations are possible. But just understand that even if it did start in the foot, even if we flipped this whole thing on its head and we went from foot to distorting the knee, which distorts the hip, which changes the angle of the pelvis, which changes the position of the lumbar spine, thoracic and neck, even if it went that way, because of the fact that this is a plausible mechanism for sustaining the foot problem, going from lumbar spine to neck to hip to knee to ankle to foot, because that's a plausible mechanism for creating a foot problem. Even if it started in the foot, If the rest of the body is maintaining that position, I can't fix a foot until I fix everything else related to that foot.